I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
All right, my passionate plant people and garden enthusiasts. It's Sunday. It's time for the Sunday edition of the Let's Get Growing show right here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host today, and we've got a great show for you ahead today. As you all know, it's the second Sunday of the month, and the second Sunday of the month means that we have our good friend Gardner Scott from the Gardner Scott channel joining us for his monthly appearance as for our Ask Gardner Scott, where Scott will join with us live here just a little bit later on in the show to answer all of your gardening questions. So definitely be prepared with some really great questions. You always do, and we always have a really wonderful, awesome conversation with Gardner Scott every time he's on the show. So again, we look forward to that coming up here in just a little bit here on the show. But let's do this while we can right here at the top of the show. You know the deal. Let's click that thumbs up. Let's hit that like button real quick and subscribe. Hit the bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming videos and live streams, as well as share with all your friends and let them know that we're here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time now for all of you over in the UK and such. Big, huge shout out. Right on, everybody who's joining with us on the replay. Thank you so much for being here on the show. And definitely let us know you're here. Let us know what you got growing on. Let us know if you still got some things growing, or if you've tucked your garden away for the winter, or just how things grew this season. Let me know all about how your garden's doing right down in the comments below, or just drop in and say hi. I love it when you all drop in and leave those awesome comments for me here on the show. So thank you so much for doing so. And if you are here with us live, like I said, definitely get those questions ready for Gardner Scott coming up here just a little bit later on in the show. But if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, definitely drop those into our chat. And for all the questions, if you can, nice big bold capital letters really help me see the questions from the regular conversation. But thank you so much for all of your contributions and dropping in those questions, especially for a big Q&A show like today, for sure. And also, definitely follow all those links down below in the description to our guest, Gardner Scott's channel. If you haven't been there, I'd be surprised if you haven't. But if you haven't, there's a link right down below for you to go check that out, as well as get a copy of his Guide to Raised Bed Gardening, and all of our other social media and all that sort of stuff too as well. So definitely go check out all those links that we have down below. So right on, everybody. Again, thank you all so much for being here today. Really great to have you here. We do have our good friend, Mr. MBC, joining with us here in just a few minutes for In the Garden coming up here too. So we got that coming up. And I also, maybe one more time, we'll mention this here. If you didn't get a chance to check out our 5th annual special Halloween Hangout live stream that we do here every Halloween, or at least the last 5 for sure. And we hang out, watch the old 1960s classic, The Little Shop of Horrors. And this year we did a little bit of a kind of costume contest and all of that. We had you viewers, as we did last year as well too. The viewers, I gave out a link so y'all can come and join with us and hang out with us during the hangout portion after the movie. So if you go back and watch it, you can skip past the movie and get to the hangout portion there and see all the fun that we had with all of our different viewer guests and all the fun costumes and all of that we had going on. It was a really great time this year, and I'm really looking forward to this next year as well too. So right on. Also, again, I'll promote this one more time as well too. We do have our latest video out of our peppers, our ultimate pepper growing guide that we've started up this season. Like I said, look at that. We got 11 episodes already. We've gone through all the way from seed selection all the way through growing and harvesting out pods in this last video, which was kind of a end of summer kind of look around at all of the plants and just kind of how we did this year with our peppers overall. And as I've also mentioned, and in the video too, that we're going to continue this pepper series, and we're going to continue making more videos. I've got some plans for some other things. There's so many things to talk about when it comes to growing peppers that I want to get it all covered throughout the next season or two, and put together some more videos and all of that for that playlist. But if you haven't had a chance to check out the playlist in general, it might be good to get a good head start on how you might start planning for and thinking about the peppers you're going to be growing for this next season, because we do get started nice and early in the year, right in the midst of winter, in our planning and getting seed started and all of that as well too. So you might want to jump to the beginning of that playlist if you haven't checked it out yet, and roll through those videos and check them out, and maybe find some strategies and tips and things that you could use to grow some peppers in your garden for sure. So yeah, check out those videos. Check out that Halloween hangout. It was really fun if you didn't get a chance to. And yeah, everybody, let's see here. Let's jump in. Let's say hi to folks here today. I know I saw earlier before the show got started, Janet was in here. It's always great to see her. She's jumping in with some great comments before the show. She said she had a real enjoyed our conversation yesterday too as well. So yeah, that was really fun discussion we had. And yeah, looking forward to Gardner Scott too as well. Let's see, I saw Leslie in here. Oh, and she asked, have you had your first snow of the season? I haven't yet. I don't know. I mean, again, too, it's always questionable around here in Southern Oregon whether or not we'll even see snow. And we have. I mean, over the last, winters I've been here, there's been increasingly less and less snow. And I would have to say, though, last winter was probably more than the winter before, but it wasn't much at all, so we get, we'll get some snow. Maybe, like I said, it'll come in one evening and be gone by the next morning for sure. But, no snow for me. But I was talking with our good friend Jay Dixon. Let's see here. Looking through here, I don't know. All right, wait. Anyways, let's where's she at? Where's Jay at here? Let's see here. I'll just pop up this one here. Questions, of course. Yes, we got questions. But yeah, let's say hi to Jay. I was just talking with her before the show, and she's going through a snowstorm right now. So this is all really about where you live right now, whether you're dealing with snow. And I'm sure as we talk to Gardner Scott later too, he's probably seen some of that white stuff as well, for sure. Right on. And I see Bowtie David in the conversation as well. Greetings to you. Thank you for being here. Look forward to seeing some of those questions later. Dusty Flats, thank you so much for joining with us here today. Always great to see you in the conversation. Our other moderator, Adam, joining with us here again from right up the road here in Southern Oregon, Central Point. He's just right up the road from me. Good to see you, Adam. Thank you for being here. Bettina, always great to see you as well, too. And she says, hello from snowy Eastern Ontario. So, yeah, you're right up in that same area where Jay is. So I'm sure you're seeing some of that same storm and some of that as well, too. So winter is starting to set in for a lot of you folks a little bit north of us. But yes, I'm not sure. We'll see what I get around here this winter. But it is starting to get a little bit cooler for sure around here. Robin, awesome to see you. Thank you so much. She says we got snow about 2 inches last night. And again, too, she says, thankfully, it's melting away already. So, yeah, I know. I'm not, again, sometimes there's people who like snow and winter and all that. I'm just not that. I think as much as I think we should be seeing snow, and it's good to see it as far as, not having winters completely warm up on us as we've been seeing, and seeing that progress even further, that sort of thing. But I'm not a big fan of snow. I'm not a big fan of the cold and all of that sort of stuff at all myself. So I never really look forward to that sort of thing. I look forward to a lot of other things during this time of year. Snow is not one of them. Serena, thank you for being here. Great to see you. Oh, there it is, Jay. There you are. Good to see you. Thanks again for being here, Jay. And thanks for facilitating the show. Keep an eye out, everybody, for links. And all of that is from Jay during the discussion today. And let's see here. I think we got through. And Bettina says, we've been in a snow globe on and off all day so far. On and off snow for you. Wow. Man. And let's see here. Janet was saying 90 degrees Fahrenheit, only Central Texas. Oh, she says she misses snow of New Hampshire. And but doesn't miss the scraping the windshields. Yeah, exactly. Just any of that cold winter stuff. I'll just say here too, is I spent several years in living in Alaska when I was younger. And I think it's just the residual effects of those years I spent in Alaska, where I'm just not a fan of winter. It was so harsh, so cold. Those years, it still makes me cold and shiver thinking about those years I lived up there. Although I've heard from friends and folks who still live up there and everything that winters aren't, again, as just like they're here, getting progressively warmer. They're not as bad as they were back the years when I was living up there and going to school. Serena says, I'd rather have snow than ice. Yeah, that's true too. That's true. This nice little snow and like what we get around here is perfect if you're going to deal with snow for me anyways. But that ice, scraping windshields, it's just freezing, bone chilling. I'm not really down for that. Dusty Flat says, I think they said flurries this afternoon in Wisconsin, probably get a foot. Oh my. See, that's a bit much for me. Just a bit much for me. Right on, everybody. It's time to move on today. Let's get this show started. It's time to connect with our good friend, Mr. NBC in the garden.
Hey guys, it's Mark BC, NBC, and you're in the garden with NBC. Actually, we're in the grow room down in my basement, and honestly, despite all the fun of the year, the growing season, the excitement and energy of the spring, the bounty of summer, and even the enjoyment of the cooler weather, early fall days with some rains coming to relieve us from some of the watering chores, I really do love the late fall and winter because I'm doing a lot in my grow room. I'm doing a lot of experiments. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm learning things. I'm really just like keeping the gardening energy going nonstop, but also in a way that's preparing me for the upcoming season. So let me just give you a peek over here. I know we've done a few videos in here before. You can see I've got some lights and a rack system. Really, it's a pretty simple system. I don't have a lot of space. I just have one standard, maybe like 7-foot rack with a couple of different shelves and 2 banks of LED lights. It's a good high-end light system, but you can do all kinds of different systems, and you can use fluorescence, full spectrum fluorescence. It's fine. Most of you, I think, are probably going to have some little corner or some area, whether it's in your basement or an old closet or whatever. If you're a passionate gardener, you want to raise your own starts, right? Because you know that certain things aren't available in the nurseries, and you can produce them for a lot cheaper than you can get them at a nursery. So it just makes sense to produce your own, and plus it's such a great feeling in the spring and throughout the summer to be growing stuff, to be planting into your garden. You could start a lot of things early, like peppers and tomatoes, for example, and just feel like you're already in the season, even though it's cold outside and you can't quite get into the garden yet. But I use these lights in the winter time, especially for growing microgreens and for doing experiments. And that's what I want to talk about today. So this year, I had a little pepper disaster last year, I have to admit to you. I started a bunch of peppers with some compost that I just grabbed out of my compost bin. It wasn't completely finished, and that's bad. That's not good. It did not give a good result. I lost a lot of peppers. It was really disappointing, and I'm determined not to do that again. I'm not going to be using my own compost. I'm going to just stay with the prepared mixes. Should have known better, but of course, in a moment when the impulse is flowing, you don't always think this through. It's like, oh, I'll just grab some of my own compost. That'll be awesome. Nope, not doing that. Anyway, I've determined that I'm going to test a bunch of potting soils over the winter and see not only am I getting the value that I'm paying for, because there's a whole range of prices. Like, for example, this one. This is Edna's Best potting soil. I get it out here in Portland. Maybe it's a West Coast thing. A lot of potting soils are regionally made and regionally branded because there's a great variety of ingredients to be had in different parts of the country. So this is Edna's Best. It's a pretty bark and wood product heavy potting soil. Kind of what I consider a middle of the line. It's going to come in at about $10.50 per cubic foot. Now, I think first of all, it's important that you get a relative sense of the price. This bag I paid was about $10.95, but as I went down to look down at the bottom how much was in it, I found out it was a little less than a cubic foot. I had to do a little calculation to convert from liters to cubic feet, but I found out it's about 0.85 cubic feet. So that leads me to about $10.50 per cubic foot. Another product I'm just going to pull up here. This one is Opus Grows, and I'm going to pay about $20 for this bag, but it's 1.5 cubic feet. So that's going to, I calculated the overall price is about $13 per cubic foot based on what I paid for the total. It's a little less than 20. Anyway, you get the idea that there's a variety in price, but there's also a variety in size. So you have to compare apples with apples and oranges with oranges. You have to get them all to a cubic foot. Sometimes you'll luck out, you get a 1 cubic foot bag, then you know whatever the price is per cubic foot. So, you know, I could be paying $3 or $4 more per cubic foot for different kinds of potting soil. And one thing I want to know is it worth it? Is potting soil A that I pay, you know, $3 or $4 more per cubic foot really much better than potting soil B? Or can I get by with the cheaper product? So that's one thing I'm interested in. And then the second thing is, can I make any little additions to it that might boost it, either from kind of take a lower potting soil and bring it up to a higher effectiveness with just some small, simple addition, or take something that's really good and even make it better. And some of that is important because our transplants, like peppers and tomatoes, our long season eggplant, long season transplants that we start indoors, are growing indoors for quite a while. They do need a very good nutrition from that soil. And also for me in the winter, the microgreens that I'm growing, like for example, here's a tray of pea shoots. You know, they're just sprouted. It's going to take about another week. And really, I just have a basic potting soil. This one I use that Opus Grows, the blue bag that I just lifted up. And I've been trying different potting soils here. In other words, what can I get away with? Do I need the really expensive potting soil for something like this? Or can I get just as good results with something a little cheaper? I'm also growing some arugula. And so here, for example, I have arugula in 1 gallon pots. I'm trying in 1 gallon pots with various potting soils. Now you'll notice when I do an experiment, I really want to have a couple of things on hand. And this is the basis for all my experimentation in the grow room. I want to have plastic tags in the pots. So, or I just should say some kind of tag. I happen to have fistfuls of these plastic tags because I used to run a microgreens business and I needed to keep track of various things. So I have them in all kinds of colors. I'm not a big fan of plastic. If you've followed some of my content before, you know that. But I do like plastic tags because, one, you can erase them. So I keep an eraser. Especially if you write in pencil, you can just rub off what was there before. So you can use them and reuse them. And then they don't pick up water from the soil. They do not conduct water from the soil like wooden tags, popsicle sticks, any of that stuff would do. I've noticed that sometimes when you leave a wooden tag in long enough, the water migrates up and can erase even a permanent marker or can smudge it beyond recognition. So these guys, whatever you write on here with a pencil, you know, you'll have that forever. Now, if I'm doing an experiment, let's get one here. So here's some standardized pots that I've been using for a lot of my experiments. These are 5 inches by 5 inches by about 2 inches deep. And I'm doing a whole series. What do I have? Four different potting soils being tried right now with the same crop. So in this round of trial, I'll have my tag that says my planting date, 11/5. So we're, 3 days into this right now. And as I would expect, I'm seeing some germination from this microgreens broccoli from Johnny's Selected Seeds. I think I got, let me see. I didn't write where it's from on this. Sometimes I do, but what I did write is approximately 1/4 teaspoon per unit. So I'm saying the date that I planted, the crop that I'm planting, how much I'm planting, and then I have another tag that identifies what potting soil. This is BG Black Gold. Okay, I have my own little codes and things, some ways to shorten things. But anyway, I've got my tag system. I've got my experiment. So in a couple of days, I'm going to be able to really look at this and say, look, I've got 420, approximately 1/4 teaspoon of seeds in there. That's a potting soil name. I've got Black Gold here. How are they measuring up? How are they doing? I'm also doing multiple units. Let's see how many of each of these. I have 3 replications of each. Because I know that if you just do one pot, approximately 1/4 teaspoon, that can have a lot of variation, right? I was actually using I didn't have 1/4 teaspoon, I was using a 1/2 teaspoon. So I was trying to get half and half, make it even, but I know there's a lot of variation in that. I might have put slightly more seeds in here than I did here. If I repeat things over and over again in larger and larger numbers, I eventually even out that variation. And so I can really see that if most of the 420s seem to be growing better, stronger, faster, more germination than the Black Gold, then I'll know that that's a stronger formulation. The other thing I want to draw to your attention is that I have on hand a designated notebook, clipboard, and pencils where I will record each experiment. So I will write down, for example, here I did the date. So and I really should put the year just because if I look at this at some other point in the future. Wednesday, November 5th, I'm doing 3 units of these 5 by 5 by 2 pots with Black Gold, 420, and I even did my sifted home compost. This is aged because I just told you I made a mistake with sifted home compost. I was using fresh stuff, but this is stuff that's been sitting for a year. So far so good. It's looking all right. I'm comparing all these 3. So I have 9 pots total. I've got 3 versions of each. I've got what I'm seeding, 1/4 teaspoon. Johnny's, really I should put 20, 25 because it's really important that you identify, especially the year for the seed, because you could be running an experiment and if you're using old seed, it may not have validity no matter what. And it doesn't matter what potting soil you use. If your seed is old, you're going to have low germination or no germination. Doesn't matter the potting soil. So you want as fresh a seed as possible or as well stored. If you know how to store it properly, then you can still get good results. So Johnny's Micro Broccoli, approximately 1/4 teaspoon per. And then I'm going to have this whole part of the page here to make notes later on. So in 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 days or 10 days or however long it takes, I'm going to be making notes. Now back to my pepper experiment. Here, because it's not really pepper starting time yet, I have used some seed that I saved from, I had a large amount of brown jalapeno, Baker Creek heirloom seeds, brown jalapeno that I saved. And I'm using that as just trial seed. So I'm testing my potting soil formulations. And this is an excellent thing to do with old seed or with stuff that you have that you might not want to grow again, or with stuff that you saved and you just got a lot of. Stuff maybe that you misidentified. Maybe you don't have the tag on it and you thought, oh man, now I can use that for testing. So here I'm testing, what am I testing? One of my favorite potting soils, 420, but this one I've added some biochar. And if you didn't get to see our interview, my Nenix interview with Kelpie Wilson last month, you're going to want to go see that on biochar and all that it can do for the soil. But I'm testing it, and it does appear, again here, I haven't done the replication, so I haven't done a lot of numbers of this, which I have to try to do next. But it does appear that I put about 30 seeds in each, and I've got a very vigorous and even germination in this pot with the addition of biochar. So that's my favorite, one of my favorite soil mixes, 420. Plus the biochar seems to be even doing way better than just the 420 itself. So I'm going to test this again, but you can see how valuable these experiments are. It gives you a chance to try stuff before you go live. Like I know that this year with my peppers, I'm going to know exactly the formulation that I want to use to get really great pepper growth without having to try it when it's time to plant peppers, because your window is narrow. And if you miss it, like I did this past year, if you mess up or something, you have to go and buy. It's a lot of expense. I'd rather just do it successfully the first time around. So this is my plea to you to use your grow light if you haven't for winter growing. Do some indoor growing, grow yourself some microgreens, do some experimentation, keep the notes, learn what you can, so that when the season comes around and formally we begin again the round after the seed catalogs come in and we ring the bell on the new gardening season, you are ready to go. You've got your potting mixes dialed in. You've got your amendments dialed in. You know exactly how much is effective. You know why you're buying a particular potting soil. You know if it's a good value or not. You know whether a more expensive potting soil is worth it or not. You just know so much because you've been able to test it. You've been able to do, under fairly controlled conditions, your own little experiments. So wishing you well as we come into this, what I think is one of the more exciting growing seasons, the indoor growing season. Wishing you well in the garden. I'll see you next time in the Garden with MBC.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants, and author, Saving the World with the Home Garden. Ivory Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
All right, there we are. Back at it now. Here we go. And again, thanks to Mark for such a great In the Garden segment there. There's a link down below. And I know that Jay put a link into our comment section already to Mark's Instagram. If you got Instagram or you want to check out, he's doing, again, more, you can follow along with some of these experiments, not just the soils and that, but some other microgreens. He's called it Microgreens University. And he's doing that throughout the winter time through some videos and things that he's sharing over on his Instagram right now. So if you want to go join and be a student at Microgreens U with Mr. MBC, our garden teacher, definitely go and check that out for sure. And also, too, mentioned Ivy Organics, our sponsor there too. Check out a link down below as well to Ivy Organics so you can get some of our really great 3-in-1 plant guard. So right on, everybody. Thanks again for being here. And we got Gardener Scott coming up here in just one moment. I just wanted to mention we had a really, really awesome show yesterday. If you didn't get a chance to be here for our show yesterday, you'll want to go and check out our featured conversation with Andrew Millison. He is a permaculture specialist and a professor over at Oregon State University. And not only that, though, Andrew does some amazing videos, some real documentary style videos on all sorts of really great topics and subjects, and visits all sorts of places all around the world and everything too. We had some really great discussions yesterday about some of those topics and subjects that he covers in his videos. And yeah, just a really great discussion. You want to go back and check that out for sure. Really great. And if you didn't get a chance to check out also last week too, we had our good friend Amy Bauer from Front Yard Veggies on with us. Really great to catch up with Amy. I got to meet Amy years ago when I was really kind of just a couple of years into doing our channel. It was great to catch up with her, as well as getting to meet Anna from the Reckless Garden for Are You Following Me last Saturday. So definitely go back and check out last Saturday's show, as well as, again, we're here every Saturday and Sunday. Our Sunday edition last week too, we had an appointment with our good friend Dr. Jeff. Dr. Jeffrey Pierce joined us to talk all about gardening as medicine, and it's always great to have him on the show as well to talk about all sorts of great topics within health and gardening. So you want to go back and check that show out for sure too. So all right, everybody, we've all been waiting. We've been waiting a whole month for this conversation. It's time for Ask Gardener Scott. All right. Let's welcome him to the show. Let's see here. I gotta do that. There he is. And then I gotta change my stuff around here. Boy, oh boy. Hey, good. Scott, how are you doing today?
Good to be back.
Yeah, it's great to have you here with us. Always great to have you here with us. Really always have such a great fun gardening conversation here. I do want to mention here, as we're getting started though too, everybody here, this is Ask Gardener Scott. So this means you all got to bring some garden questions. Let's bring those out. Let's drop those into the comments there, and we'll work through those here through our conversation with Gardener Scott today. But again, welcome to the show, Scott. How are things growing?
Not particularly well. We've had beyond hard freezes. Let's see. Last night it was down to 22 degrees. Last week we got down to 17 degrees. So yeah, my outdoor garden is pretty much done for the year.
Oh my. Yeah, that's kind of something that we were talking about just a little bit ago. There's lots of folks here as well too, already starting to deal with frost and especially snow right now. I was chatting with Jay just a little bit before the show and everything. She's in the middle of a snowstorm up there in Canada right now. So all of you folks, and for you, I guess, Colorado, you're up there high in the mountains and all that sort of stuff. So,
but we haven't had snow yet. This is actually unusual for us. We've been relatively warm for what is normal for this type of year. For most of the years I've lived here, we've had snow on Halloween, and we didn't get snow at all in the entire month of October. So that's a little unusual. We're getting some cold, but there's no snow in our forecast for at least the next week either. So very, very dry.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so that's kind of something. No snow. Yeah. That's and I was, for me, as I mentioned too, is we don't it used to be when I first lived here, we would get a month or more of just snow. We would get a couple of feet of snow. We'd have all sorts of it. But over the years, it's progressively gotten less and less and less to where we
Yeah.
barely get anything anymore. And so like although like I said earlier too, last year was maybe just a bit more than the year before, but it wasn't much of anything. We maybe it might have been a really just the snow the evening before, and then the next day it kind of lasts a little bit throughout the day, but by that next day or so it was gone. And that's usually kind of our experience here with the snow where I'm at. But it's got to be kind of unusual for a place like yours, like you're saying, though, where that's something you're
Yeah.
really used to is snow by this time of year, and it's just
Yeah.
not coming around.
The first year I moved here on October 18th of that first year. Reason I remember it's October 18th because we got 18 inches of snow on that day. Haven't seen anything like that since, but it's not unheard of to get big snows. But like you say, it's been a while since I've seen it as well.
Yeah. Right on, right on. So, again, you say that pretty much the outdoor garden. Is there anything? I mean, I know you got a greenhouse. Is there anything growing? Are you?
Oh yeah, so I've got some stuff in the greenhouse. I'm actually
Yeah.
still harvesting tomatoes in the greenhouse. I'm
perfect.
harvesting figs in my greenhouse for the first time. So, and I'm harvesting strawberries every now and then in the greenhouse, and it's an unheated greenhouse. So that's pretty incredible that I can still have something going into November.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was gonna want to start talking with you about, anyways. Though, too, is kind of and I don't have much experience because I don't really got a greenhouse. It'd be nice if I had the space or place for one and everything. But what are some good greenhouse tips for this time of year that you might have for folks out there?
So it depends on whether it's a heated greenhouse or an unheated greenhouse. So
Mhm.
the thing about unheated greenhouses is at night, they're going to be pretty much the same as the outside temperature. So unless you've got the water and the concrete and the gravel, like I show in my videos, it's going to be cold. So just plan to stop gardening inside and outside unless you take some of those precautions to retain heat within your greenhouse. But if you've got a heated greenhouse, if you've got electricity, the main issue right now in November and December and January in particular, there's just not enough light to really have the plants growing well. So it's more than just the heat in a greenhouse. The lighting is also very important during late fall and the winter months to keep plants growing.
All right, excellent. Shawnee asks, do you have any indoor garden? You growing anything indoors at all?
So I've had some traveling in the last few weeks, so I haven't actually started my indoor stuff yet. I agree with Mark that now's a great time of year to do it. So I've got a lot of seed packets in my refrigerator that have been stratifying for the last month, and over the course of the next week and maybe 2 weeks, I'll be doing a lot of my perennial plants from seed for next year. Rosemary, lavender, I have all those seeds in the refrigerator ready to go, and we'll be starting them soon, but nothing growing right now just because I haven't been home as much as I normally am.
Been out traveling a bit, huh? Is it things for your channel and all of that, or is it more personal?
No, just fun. No, I talked about it on my live stream last week that we went to Disney World with my daughter and granddaughters and just had a wonderful time being tourists and enjoying ourselves.
Oh boy, that sounds like a great time though too. Some really good fun time with the grandkids for sure. Yeah, definitely. Right on. Let's see here. Let's get into some questions around here. I know David dropped in a bunch for us earlier. Let's see what he's got on here. What's the best pH range and test method for sandy coastal soil that breaks down organic matter fast?
So when we talk about what breaks down organic matter, for the most part, we're talking about bacteria. You can also talk about the fungi and all the various other insects and microbes that are in the soil. But for the bacteria in particular, you're looking for generally a pH range of 6 to 8. And as long as it's a 6 to 8 pH range, the bacteria that are normally breaking down the organic matter will stay active. When you start getting to the edges and it either becomes too acidic or too alkaline, then just like plants that can't really do well outside a particular range, bacteria is similar. So I don't know if I've ever measured my pH while I've been actively composting, because for the most part, the materials we put into compost bins, it's going to maintain that 6 to 8 without too much issue. But if you're adding things like wood ash, for instance, which is highly alkaline, then yeah, you could throw off the pH within your pile, and then you might need to make corrective action.
All right, excellent. And let's see here, and I did pop this up, but I saw Charles over at Ivy Organic with us here today. Great to see you. And he says, Gardner Scott, could you share some tips on your success growing plants in containers versus in the ground? Any pros or cons?
So hi, Charles. And I don't know if you saw my last video. I didn't send you a link, but like you were talking about, I've been using Ivy Organics in the last week, painting all my trees going into winter, and included that in the video that I released last week. So good time to be talking about Ivy Organics. The containers versus in ground or in raised beds, we have to look at the plant and what the plant needs to really determine the pros and cons of it. So the first tip is match the plant with the container. Just like when we put a plant in the ground, you need to match the plant with the location, be it sunny or shady, or the soil requirements for it. It holds true in a container as well. So if it is, like we were just talking about pH, if it's a plant that requires a particular pH range, you need to match that. So this week, I added sulfur to the pot that I have my blueberry plant actively growing in, because my soil is slightly alkaline. I don't grow blueberries in the ground. I use the containers for that. And to maintain the pH of the soil, you have to keep adding sulfur to keep the soil acidic. So matching the soil with the plant is one of those tips that a lot of gardeners either aren't aware of or don't take the effort to make sure that the soil is appropriate. And a lot of plants need a well-draining soil. So if you've got too much compost and too much peat moss, then it's probably going to stay wet, and that could be an issue why your plants don't do well, is because it doesn't drain well enough. So take those factors that are soil based into consideration. And then your climate. I've talked about this in the past with strawberries in containers, that I'm in zone 5, if you're in zone 5 or zone 6, it's really hard to grow a lot of plants like strawberries or garlic through the winter, because they just don't do well. And it's not the cold necessarily, it's the cycling between cold and heat over the course of a winter. And so my strawberries that are in raised beds do fine. I don't do anything with them. The garlic does great, but I can't grow them in containers, because the soil in a container will freeze, in my case, freeze solid. That's not the issue. It's when it thaws the next week and then refreezes, and you go through that freeze thaw cycle, and that's enough to damage the roots, damage the bulbs, whatever it is you're growing. Whereas a bigger bed, like a raised bed or in-ground bed, is going to be more consistent with the temperature, and you're not going to have that same damage. So you need to match the plant with your climate, what kind of winter you have, before you even put the plant in a container. The nice thing about containers, depending on the size, is you can move them. So you can follow the sun, especially this time of year. You can move them and keep them growing for another couple of weeks if you need that extra couple of weeks of sunlight, like if you're saving the seeds or you're going to propagate or whatever it happens to be. So there's a little bit. I can talk all day long about it, but I know we've got other questions in the queue.
Yeah, there's so much going on in that question for sure. Let's see here. Oh, Bowtie was saying, yes, Scott, I saw you flying over on your way to Florida and waved, but you looked busy.
Yeah, appreciate that, Dave. Sorry I didn't see you.
Right on.
It was pretty cloudy as we were going into Florida, so I couldn't see the ground much at all.
No, right on. Oh, let's see. Oh, wow. What did you? You got a picture or something? I don't know. Your bottle that was so weird looking.
Yeah,
I
don't
noticed
have
you got a different. Yeah, I was gonna say you got a different. You're not doing your green screen background. So
yeah, I was on a podcast earlier in the week that didn't have the green screen, so I took my green screen down, but didn't put it back up for today. And my camera is still set up.
Yeah, that's what it is. Okay,
for the green screen.
That's really cool looking. Actually, I was like, I was seeing some garden going on there while you were drinking.
Yeah, that's the picture I normally have in the backdrop that plays on the green screen. But without the green in the background, you can't see that picture.
Yeah, right on. Excellent. Serena's asking, have you ever had sour tomatoes? Mine were sour this summer. She says, I didn't use baking soda because I thought it was a myth. What else do you do to prevent sour tomatoes?
Yeah, so baking soda is a myth, and you can actually create a problem with baking soda. That can throw off the pH. And if you've got a pH, for most of our plants like tomatoes, we're looking for like a 6.0 to 7.0 range in our plants. And so you throw baking soda thinking you're going to sweeten it, which if you have acidic soil, that might be the case. But if you've got soil like mine that's alkaline and you throw in baking soda, you can totally throw off how your plants grow, and that can affect the flavor. If it's a variety that you're normally growing and it's normally sweet, then it's usually meteorological. The plants are too dry or they're too wet. The soil isn't able to get the nutrients into the plant. Over fertilizing can also cause the taste to be off a little bit because it's not absorbing some of those elements that it might need for flavor. So like with most tomato issues, it just gets down to consistent watering and regular amending of the beds, and then the flavors should be fine. If you
figuring out that temperament for those tomatoes, right?
Exactly. And if you harvest a little bit early.
Yeah, tomato issues, right?
Yeah, you need to make sure you're harvesting at the right time.
Little not enough water, all sorts of things can go into factors when it comes to tomatoes, and
it affects the taste.
Yeah, and the taste, exactly. Yeah, that's just one of the things. So we talk about baking soda being a myth. There's so many of these sort of things. We've kind of touched on these things before in other discussions and all of that. Is there anything that you would think, kind of a different question, but anything you would think sounds like a myth that isn't a myth, like additives and things like this that people talk about, we see things about like banana water and all these sort of crazy things that we see.
Eggshells. I've got a good gardening friend who's a master gardener, and he swears by adding sugar to make his tomatoes sweeter. Total myth.
Yeah.
So a lot of those household things. Epsom salts, there is some validity to it because Epsom salts are magnesium sulfate, and sulfur is a macronutrient that plants need. So if you have a deficiency of sulfur, then you could use Epsom salts and your plants will do well. Very few soils have a deficiency of magnesium, but it could happen. And so Epsom salts could help. But the idea
in that particular case, then, right?
In that particular case, the idea that your plants are doing so well because of the Epsom salts, that's where the myth comes in. And there's so many things like that. Now there are some studies, that promote, for instance, milk, using a diluted milk solution on leaves as an antifungal agent. That actually works. It's a household product that does have, if you've got powdery mildew and you spray your leaves with the diluted milk solution, there's actually some research that supports that. But for the most part, these tips and tricks, grab something from your kitchen and throw it on. A lot of it is just wasted money.
Yeah, you know the one that I have never had a chance to try or look into, but I see a lot of people talk about all the time, and there seems to be a lot of consensus on it, which some of these myths and things like that do have. But comfrey, like we talked about, I was just mentioning the banana, sort of soaking them and doing that sort of stuff to create a kind of a fertilizer solution. What do you know about comfrey, kind of in the same similar
Yeah,
use?
comfrey is highly overrated. Now, having said
Yeah.
that, I
Hmm.
grow comfrey. I
Yeah.
take my comfrey leaves and I do make some extracts by fermenting the leaves and putting that into the soil. But when you look at the analysis of how much of the leaf actually gets in the water that you then add to your soil, it's very small. So it's nice as a plant to grow because comfrey, I want to say, has like 14 different nutrients and elements within the leaves, but
Mm.
the actual ratio, the actual percentages of those ingredients are extremely small, and they really don't have as big effect on plants as particularly the permaculture community says that it is the master plant, the dynamic accumulator. The idea being that the deep roots of the comfrey are bringing up nutrients from the soil. Yeah, that's true. All plants do
Yeah.
that to some degree. I prefer to use comfrey in my compost because it's an awesome green material. It's got pretty good levels of nitrogen, and I'll also use it as a mulch around some of my plants. And even though I
Mm.
do use it along with stinging nettle and dandelions when I make a fertilizer, a tea, um,
Yeah.
it's more just because I have it, not
Right.
because it really is as magical as many people think.
Good, but not magical.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned okay, in ferments and that sort of thing, but I think Shawnee's talking about other types of ferments. But what ferments haven't you done yet that you want to?
And so I haven't fermented garlic. I
Mm.
use a lot of garlic, grow garlic. My garlic's already in the ground, but I haven't fermented garlic. So that is at the top of my list. I regularly ferment my peppers. I'll do beets and zucchini. I've got a lot of videos, of course, that show all of that. But when it comes to the regular garden items that I haven't fermented yet, yeah, definitely garlic. Trying to think. I've fermented watermelon rind
Oh
and
yeah.
squash and peppers and cucumbers. I've fermented almost everything. I've fermented tomatoes. I fermented almost everything that I can, that pops to my head in the garden, um, except when we start talking about garlic. So
Yeah.
that's the only one. I can't think of anything else that I haven't tried that I want to.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah. Garlic sounds like a good one for sure.
Yeah, I've pickled garlic,
Yeah.
using vinegar, and very, very tasty. And that's why I want to ferment, just to be able to compare the taste.
Yeah. And I know we kind of touched on garlic a little bit last time you were on the show, but I wanted to kind of dig into it just a little bit here today. Um, Great segue, anyways, on fermenting it and all of that. But it is kind of that time of year. Again, depending on really where you're living, what your climate is, and all of that, whether or not you're seeing your first frost or that sort of stuff coming up in the near distance and all of that. So this is a time a lot of people are thinking about getting their garlic into the ground. So this is definitely something that we're out planting right now, as a lot of the rest of our garden is kind of shutting down, right? So any real tips or any thoughts on getting garlic started?
Yeah, and I am asked this time of year often about, is it too late to start my garlic?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yep.
if you've got garlic cloves, it's not too late. If the other option is to throw them in the compost pile because you think it's too late, go ahead and put them in the ground. Worst
Yeah.
case scenario is that they're not going to make it through the winter, and you've wasted nothing. But it's never too late if you already have them. It might be too late to buy the bulbs and
Right.
to even find them to put them in the ground. But if you've got garlic bulbs, just go ahead and put them in the ground. The general guideline is you want to have your garlic cloves in the ground 4 to 6 weeks before the ground freezes. Not when you get a freeze. I've already had a lot of freezes almost every night, but my ground isn't frozen yet because the days are still so warm.
Right.
And I actually put my garlic in later than normal because remember I said we normally have snow at the end of October. The October was so warm and we didn't get those frigid days and we didn't get the snow that I'm a full week, almost 10 days later than normal getting my garlic in the ground because it's still so warm.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that my ground is going to freeze mid-December like it normally does, but I don't know for sure this year. So I did delay my garlic because I could be at the 4-week point, but I'm hoping it's going to be 6 weeks before I get the ground frozen. And the reason you do that is because the clove is going to wake up. You still want to water. You want to keep the soil moist.
Yeah.
And it's still going to be warm enough that it's going to wake up that clove and you're going to get some root development. That's really the reason we're planting at this time of year, because the soil is still warm enough for roots to develop so that clove then goes dormant into the winter.
You kind of want to wake it up to put it back to sleep, right?
Exactly. And if you put a clove in too late, after the ground is like almost frozen and you don't get that root development, then it doesn't have that wake up and going back to sleep. And that often, and this is what's affecting in containers we were talking about earlier. That's one reason why the container doesn't do well in like zone 5 and 6 for garlic, is because it doesn't know whether it's awake or whether it's asleep. And so you really need to key those very specific genes to support the growth during the winter months. But if it stays too warm too long, then you have the leaves that start to pop up out of the ground. And basically the clove is expending most, if not all of its energy to send up that new growth. Then winter hits, then it kills that growth. And then come springtime, there isn't enough energy left in that clove to start growing again. So the timing is
that true, even though, like, say, climate, like for me, I've had my garlic in and it's grown some good leaves, before like we really had the winter set in, and my leaves don't die off or anything when it comes to that. But I still get some tall ones that'll pop up and all of that if I get it in a little bit too early. Is that sort of the same thing for, the bulb or what's developing underneath as well too, though, that, even though you're not getting the leaf die off, that just getting it in too early is just going to create too much energy too early?
Yeah, it's going to use too much of the energy too early.
Yeah.
And it depends on how harsh your winter is. Garlic is very durable. I've got videos where I show my garlic growing in snow. So it can handle cold temperatures near freezing. The issue is, like, in 5B, we get down to minus 15 in the winter, and that's enough to kill garlic leaves. And so for you, and Oregon doesn't necessarily have the intensity of the lows. Yeah. And so you might be able to get through the winter with a little bit extra mulch or something. And it's not that big of an issue. And so a lot depends on how harsh the winter is. Yeah,
definitely. And as far as, where the next one? The planting. This, if you're out planting and all of that, what are some things like as far as spacing that we should be thinking about? How deep should we be planting these garlic bulbs and all of that?
So it depends on what the size of the bulb is going to be. So I didn't grow it this year, but the last couple of years I've grown a variety called Shishili, which is a very small bulb. And so I was planting those 3 inches apart because the bulb is only like an inch wide. And so take that into account. If you're growing elephant garlic that might be 4 inches wide, then you need those like 8 inches apart just to make sure that there's enough room for those plants. For most of the garlics that we're growing, 6 inches is a good target, and that should allow for plenty of room around the bulb as it develops and you're close to harvest time. And then generally 2 to 3 times the size of the clove is how deep you want to plant it. And there's flexibility there. If you are planting early, you might actually want to plant a little deeper because the soil is going to kind of insulate it. And if you're planting, a little bit too late where the soil is going to freeze, you might also want to plant a little bit deeper because that deeper soil is going to freeze later than the surface soil. So, I mean, you can moderate the depth based on when you're planting or when you're expecting the freeze to hit.
And what are kind of, and again, there's for a lot of folks out there too, there's basically 2 varieties or 2 types of garlic out there. You got the soft neck and you got the hard neck. What are some of the real differences between these two we should be thinking about?
Yeah, so the soft neck generally is what you see at the supermarket. A lot of that comes from California. Actually, Oregon is starting to get into the mix of garlic growing. There's a few other places that are kind of taking business away from California. But those are regions that have mild winters, and the soft neck garlic stores for a longer period of time. And so if you are looking to store garlic and you live in an area with relatively mild winters, then the soft neck variety tends to do better for you. Hard neck varieties are able to withstand the cold temperatures of winter much better. Some of the garlic I'm growing are purple varieties. They're Russian varieties. And so they can handle the cold temperatures that I get to in winter here in Colorado, but they don't store for as long. The flavor often is more intense in a hard neck than it is in a soft neck. And so that's what you look for when you're growing garlic, is the taste, the storage, what kind of winters you have. There's a lot of factors. And then the bulb actually needs cold temperatures to turn into a bulb. So when you put a clove in the ground,
to split basically, right?
Well, yeah, for
it
it
kind of
to
swell up, and then the winter really
swell
helps
up
them
and
break
become
up.
multiple cloves. Yeah.
Yep.
And so above zone 8, you have to be careful what varieties you're choosing, because they might not be able to have that exposure to cold temperatures and turn into a bulb. And so there are some varieties that are specifically suited, like Cajun varieties for southern states, that are the kind of garlic that will do better. And I was just talking to my son who lives in Louisiana. He's thinking about growing garlic. And I said, just stick it in your refrigerator for a month or 2. So you fool it into thinking that it got all that cold temperature. Then you put it in the ground when you live in those warm regions, and you'll get the bulb development.
Yeah, I actually did an experiment on that just to do that, and it seemed to work out pretty well. And because that's kind of really the point, like you're saying, is we need to kind of give it that really cold dormancy. I don't know, is it stratification, or if I'm getting that term right or not? But
yeah, that's what we do with seeds when we talk about putting the cold to the seeds. Is cold stratification. And yeah, it's basically the same when you do a garlic bulb that you're going to plant if your regular winter doesn't provide the cold.
Yeah. And so we got our garlic in the ground growing, all that. What are some kind of issues that we could come up with? There was one that I heard about before, and I don't think I've really ever dealt with it all, but I've heard of things like garlic rust. And are there any others, or maybe talk about that?
Yeah, garlic rust, any of the things that affect alliums in general. So, some of the onion pests can also affect garlic as well. I've never had an issue with that either. So a lot of it is just based on your region and where you live, and learn that yeah, if you're going to grow garlic, it helps to go to a local nursery or to talk to the master gardeners and find out if you have that issue wherever it is that you happen to live.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, some really good garlic. We got for our book club next month, we've got Kristen Graves from she wrote a book called The Garlic Companion.
Oh, nice.
So we'll be digging more and more into garlic as well too this next week for our book club. But yeah, it's just one of my favorite crops. It is you know, again, it's and maybe I'll ask you this too, or here as we finish up with talking about garlic. But for me, like it's a set it and forget it type of thing,
Yeah.
you know, and I would wonder for you as well too, in talking about, you know, fertilizing or amending our soil or doing certain things like that. I don't know if I've necessarily seen really any issues, you know, whether I've fertilized and amended my soil or if I've just, you know, planted them out in a space that's just new soil or a new spot or something like that. Never really seen too much of a difference in the years that I've been growing garlic. And I don't know what your thoughts on actually them being heavy feeders or whatever that I've
Yeah,
heard.
now they're really not heavy feeders, and they
Yeah.
have a relatively small root system.
Mhm.
You know, I have seen a little variation in the size of the bulb. So if you've got good amended soil that's loose soil, and I think that's really a better factor. If the bulb has room to grow, then it's going to grow. The times that I've had the smaller bulbs, it's typically because the soil is a little denser. I didn't have as much organic matter. And so it was harder for the clove to push against the soil and get bigger. But
Yeah.
I always amend it. And yeah, it is a kind of a plant and forget kind of thing. The last thing I do before I put my cloves in the ground is amend it. And I did that this year as well. I added compost,
Yeah.
mixed compost into the soil, then put the cloves in, then watered, and I'll occasionally water through the course of the winter and then into spring. But that's all you do, in addition to mulching, of course.
Yeah.
And I don't worry too much about it. You know, when I advise people about amending their beds, I encourage to amend in fall so that the soil microbes have fall and winter and spring to break down all that organic matter. I don't always recommend amending in the spring if you're going to be planting soon after, because the decomposition process might rob some nitrogen initially from the soil. But that's not a concern really for bulbs and for garlic. They're not really
Yeah.
using much nitrogen, if any, during that initial growth process in the fall. So you can amend the day you're planting, then put those cloves into nice fluffy ground, and that boost of nutrients in addition to the lightness of the soil should help the bulb development.
Yeah. Again, like I said, it's just I think that's one of my favorite things about growing garlic is literally I can just plant them anywhere. In fact, I had advised because my neighbor who's starting a garden, they're getting some things set up and got a couple of little, you know, kind of, you know, landscape beds in the front, you know, and I was like, that's a good spot for garlic too. Just plop those around like you would other like flower bulbs and that sort of stuff. And, you know, so you can kind of put them off in places that aren't necessarily taking up space in your own garden space.
Oh yeah. And you can use it as a landscape plant, especially the hardneck varieties have the scape. They have a little curlicue that forms at the top, and then it turns into a little flower essentially at the top of the stalk, the scape. And yeah, you can plant garlic in your landscape to just look pretty and not even worry about harvesting it. And if you just leave it in the ground, the next year, you're going to have multiple plants coming from that bulb. You know, you might put a clove in the ground, and a couple years later, you've got a big flush mound of garlic growing as an ornamental plant.
Yeah, all clumped together and a bunch of them. I did that. I've left a couple in the ground over a couple of seasons, and it, like you say, it just turned into a big old bunch of all sorts of, and you know, they're odd shaped and not quite like what we would get if we had them all kind of separated from each other, but they'll keep on growing season after season.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, so you mentioned the hardnecks and the scape and the flower and all of that too. I think one of the fascinating things about garlic, and especially the hardneck garlic, is that they don't really produce seed. What they produce is these little boobles, and they can kind of,
Yeah.
and they can grow all over this, all up and down the stem and off of the flowers and all that sort of stuff. Have you ever taken any of those? I know I'm kind of just starting to experiment. I grew some last year. We're going into next year to see how they do. But have you ever experimented or tried growing
Yeah, I
straight
did
from
a long
bugles
time
versus
ago.
cloves?
You basically add an extra year. So those
Yeah,
little bulbils will grow into a clove, basically, and then that clove grows into a bulb. So it basically takes 2 years to get a bulb if you plant those little things, and they will form seed. I mean, that's how
yeah,
they develop some new varieties of garlic, because if you're planting either the clove or what you're talking about, those little things that either pop up along the stem or at the top near where that flower cluster is, those are
yeah,
clones. You'll get the same garlic when you plant those, but you
yeah.
can actually let it flower and collect the seed,
And cross them
and
with others.
you can cross the different varieties. Yeah, that's definitely possible. It's just not something I've never done it. I don't know anyone that
Yeah.
has done that, but it is possible.
Yeah, yeah. It's just too easy to do it the normal way we all do it, right?
Yeah.
Let's see, Bowtie David is asking, Keen Garlic has encouraged me to grow both hard and soft neck garlic here in Destin, Florida, and had great success. How much is that zonal instruction a real rule?
So it's really not a real rule. It comes down to the variety, and it comes down to how cold your zone gets. So as long as you're matching, the garlic with your zone, will determine your success. So yeah, in Florida, the soft neck will do fine, and the hard neck will probably do fine. The biggest issue is if they're getting enough cold, and that's where the zone comes in, talking about the cold of winter. If it's cold enough for the bulb to develop, that is important. But the rest of it, yeah, it really doesn't matter. When we're talking about the summer garden and we're talking about our cucumbers and our tomatoes and our peppers and everything else, the zone doesn't matter at all. And it's essentially the same with garlic. It doesn't matter what zone you're in to grow garlic, except that because of the differences in the garlics, some will do better when the winter temperatures match that particular variety.
All right. Yeah. Let's see here. Serena also asked, I had 2 garlic sprouts right next to each other. So I pulled one and replanted it further away so it could grow more. Do I need to do anything else to it so it will grow?
Once it's in the ground, just let it grow. Like you're talking about, it's an easy plant to grow. There isn't really much you can do. And a mistake that a lot of people make is to fertilize it. If you over fertilize garlic, it may not do well either, because it doesn't need it. It just is fine in most soil. So if it's there and if it's in the ground, just make sure the soil doesn't dry out and stay dry, and it'll probably be okay.
Yeah. All right, see, Robin Gardens asked us a little bit here, kind of moving on to other alliums and such. What is your favorite time frame to start onion, shallot, and leek seeds?
And so fall is actually a great time. The best success I've had is when I had seeds in the ground in fall.
Yeah.
That then were in the ground all winter and were able to develop into good, nice bulbs by the end of the next summer. So every time I grow from seed in spring, my season just doesn't match that. And so even if I want to try a bulb onion, it ends up being a green shallot or scallion kind of onion, because it doesn't develop into that bulb. It needs more time. And so fall, and especially for shallots and leeks that take forever to grow, fall is probably going to give most of us the best success.
Yeah, I in fact, I go even like for leeks. My best leeks I've ever grown, I started maybe at the end of spring, maybe beginning of summer or so, kind of just getting them growing, getting them started. And then as the weather, and then they just kind of grow, do their thing. They don't do too much. It's hot, it's warm, but I can keep them alive and everything's good. Once it starts cooling down, those things start growing. And they start growing. And then even during the middle, I was harvesting these things in the middle of winter, and they had gotten big, fat, and again, doing that deep planting method where you're planting your your little starts in nice and deep and everything, so that they can grow those nice white stalks as high up as possible, right? So my best leeks were started like really kind of late spring, early summer.
But you still gave them 9 or 10 months, even, it sounds like, before you're harvesting.
Because because there's such a they take so long. But I think they just grow best in the cold.
They do. They definitely like the cold, and that's why you can put them in the ground in fall and let them stay in the ground over the winter. Typically the seeds aren't going to start sprouting until the very beginning of spring. But that's the advantage, is they're in the ground and they start sprouting as soon as the soil thaws out. And it's still cold. You think it's too cold, but it's warm enough for those alliums to be growing.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here too, real quick. I know we just chatted about that before we started talking about garlic, but David was asking, how good are comfrey deep roots for holding a hill together?
They have a pretty dense and thick root system. So if you're worried about erosion, if that's the reason you're asking the question, you've got a hillside and you're worried about it eroding. The size of the plants and the size of the roots, I don't know that I've seen any research or studies about it, but it just makes sense that comfrey would do pretty well holding a hill together.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. Moving along with some questions. Oh, here's an interesting question. How much you might have some knowledge about this, but Shawnee, and I saw she was doing some videos and stuff on this as well too, but can you speak a little bit about folks who receive EBT SNAP? This is big time in the news right now for sure. Using their card to purchase seed, plant, and produce at markets, farmers markets. Let's see, maybe a list of what to start with.
Check locally. I know that, like for instance, our local food bank at different times of year will actually have seeds as part of what they give away for the food bank. I know there are some limitations as to what types of plants or seeds, but a lot of areas will include seeds and plants that can be used with your SNAP card. So just check to see what stores you have and what they're selling, and ask them, because it really comes down to what they have in stock, what their inventory includes. I think it might have been Shawnee Grows had asked about online. I'm not aware of any online.
Serena was asking about that.
Oh, okay, that was Serena. Yeah, I'm not aware of any online sources, but again, just ask the question, because I know that a number of the stores in my area in spring that have the seeds, you can use your SNAP to get the seeds. But
it really does, like you said, and I did some research on this a couple of years back as well too. Like you're saying, is that you got to really kind of call around, you got to figure this out. One of the things to think about, really, I would advise, is that thinking about, like, we have some like kind of bigger stores that sell all sorts of different stuff. Up here we have one called Fred Meyer, right? They've got seeds and everything, and you can buy those there with your EBT SNAP because they sell other food. So a business has to go through a process with the government in order to be able to accept SNAP. And so if they're just like like a Home Depot, they do hardware. They don't deal with food otherwise. You know what I mean? So they're not going through the process to sign up for SNAP to be able to accept that for those, just for that small certain purchases that might be done. It's just too small of a thing for them to deal with at that point. So you're looking for grocery stores that sell seeds, and again too, you might be able to find some nurseries who've gone through that process because they sell other food bearing plants and have enough within their stock to make it worthwhile for them to do that. And the same again too. It's like you're saying, it's just about really calling around and finding out. I think it's one of the things really awesome though about that program is that it's not just going and buying food at your grocery store. You can go purchase food bearing plants. You can, if the type of store is selling those things, you can buy seeds, which is really great, the way to be able to get the seeds that you need to grow and all of that too. And I'd love to see them, kind of expand on these programs and do some more instructional type of stuff to help people who are on these programs to understand that, to learn a little bit more, and maybe become new gardeners, down the road.
There you go.
That sort of thing as well too. But it really is some footwork, right? It's just, you got to get out there, make some phone calls and check some things out. And as far as online seed companies and stuff, that's their primary business, is selling food stuff. So, I mean, it would be, and I don't know of any, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but you would think that it would be worthwhile for seed companies to be able to go through that process to be able to.
And it can't hurt to ask. It's just an email or a phone call. And sometimes I do remember a local nursery that actually did have a sign posted saying they cannot accept the card. And so it varies. You're exactly right. It depends on whether they've gone through that process to be able to sell the products.
Yeah, and here's another thing though too, is that if they do accept EBT for other food purchases, and they do sell food seeds, you know what I mean, then they have to sell you those products with your EBT too. So if you get to a store where you're using an EBT card, and you're at a store, they sell food, they accept EBT, and you're trying to buy some seeds but it doesn't come through, you got to have them maybe get a manager or something. You've got to kind of maybe push it a little bit more, because they are obligated to, because they accept EBT, they are obligated to sell those to you as well. So there is that part of it as well too. So if you're trying to use your EBT and it's not going through in a store that accepts EBT for, again, it has to be a food bearing plant or food seeds. They're not going to accept flower seeds and those sort of things as well.
Yeah, that's a good point as well.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and Robin's right about the seed libraries. Check your local book library and see if they have a seed library section. And that's a great way to do it. Here, we actually had 2 libraries that had seed libraries, and now both of them have closed down. So as big an area as I live in, we don't have any seed libraries anymore, but ask at your library, and that's a great way to get free seed.
Yeah, or if you're affiliated with a group, a gardening, community garden, or other sorts of things as well too, you can call some of these seed companies and say, hey, do you got last year's stock you're trying to get rid of? I know Baker Creek's really good about this. You can call them up and say, hey, I want to donate even to my local food bank some seeds and sort of things like that. And you'll find seed companies that are really willing to send you some big packages of some. I know Baker Creek did for me a couple of years ago when I was looking into a lot of this stuff to give to our local access that we have here in Southern Oregon. And so there's that possibility too, where you can probably get yourself a couple of packages as well as you're donating them as well too. Right on. Yeah. Good stuff though. Important things, and I'm really glad that they have that availability within those programs that low income people can get in and not feel a barrier towards gardening in a way. It's like, it's a good way to get them to start growing and thinking about their food a little differently. Yeah. All right, let's see here. Let's get in some questions here. David again brings us lots of questions here. Let's see what this one says here. How can I fine tune one's bed's microclimate when some crops love it and others fail?
So I do a lot of that in my raised beds with different soil blends, and finding out some of my soils drain better than others. Some of my soils hold water better, and that comes down to the soil. But the big way I do it is with my hoops that I have over the bed. So some of my beds have shade cloth and some of the beds don't. And that creates its own microclimate. Different times of year, some of my beds have plastic over them and some of the beds don't. That creates a microclimate. and then also where the bed is. And so it took me a couple years when I first moved to the house I'm at now. My shed sits about 15 feet away from the closest raised beds, and the beds are in full sun. I wasn't at all concerned, but later in the day, the shed actually begins casting shade. And so I recognize that those beds that are closest to the shed get about an extra 30 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes of shade that the other beds don't get. And that created a microclimate. There were some plants that one year would be great and the next year they weren't as great. And I realized when I put them in those beds that get that extra amount of shade, it's a microclimate and the plants are going to do differently. So look at the entire area. And one way you can do it is to actually like plant a tree or not prune a tree, depending on what it is you're looking for. But create shade, create heat, like with plastic, create the like trellises. You can use trellises to also modify the microclimate because the plants are taller in that bed. And so they're generating more shade for the plants behind them. So, you know, those kind of little, you know, tricks where you just make the plant think that they're in a different area that they're growing by how you orient the bed or choose to put the plants in the bed.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. And he asks, David asks, what one experiment should every coastal gardener try at least once?
Same thing. I would say work on microclimates. You know, one of the nice things about a lot of coastal areas is you tend to have a more moderate climate. And so you're not going to see the extreme heat and you're not going to see the extreme cold, but you can still modify a bed. So, you know, if you're on the coast of California or Oregon or Washington in particular, but this also holds true for Florida, you can add plastic, add shade cloth, add trellises, add trees, add shade to try to change what your normal climate is, to essentially mimic a different zone. So you might be able to grow a plant in a bed that you've created a microclimate in that you wouldn't normally be able to grow because of the conditions you have, particularly in a coastal region.
Right on. Yes. Excellent. Excellent questions, David. Thank you so much, everybody, for your questions. If you want to get a question in real quick here, definitely drop that into our chat right now. So let's see here. Another thing, for a lot of us still, you know, some of the people are still pulling things out of their garden and doing things and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of certain things like my peppers and some of my tomatoes and all that sort of stuff. I'm saving seeds. You got any thoughts, tips, or suggestions when it comes to thinking about saving seeds?
Yeah, the key when saving seeds is to try to leave the seed source on the plant as long as possible. You know, and so talking about peppers, for instance, and occasionally I'm asked about, yeah, I saved the seeds from my green bell pepper and none of them grew when I planted them the next year. And because a green bell pepper is too young for viable seeds. You might get some, but you really want the fruit to be ripe when you harvest the seeds, or you want the flower to be dried before you harvest the seeds. That's the best way to ensure that the seed is going to be viable. So with your peppers, wait until it turns red or orange or yellow or purple, whatever kind of pepper it is, then harvest your seeds. The same with tomatoes. You can harvest a tomato early, like when it's still green or starting to change color, and it will ripen on your counter, but that's no guarantee that the seeds are going to be viable. It's the flesh that's ripening. And so try to make sure you have a ripe or overripe tomato if you're going to save those seeds. And the same with cucumbers. Get that big, ugly cucumber that's been on the plant for longer than it should be. And that's what you harvest the seeds from.
Yeah, definitely. That's why you don't let those cucumbers get too big, because those seeds really start to develop and get hard, and those cucumbers aren't as tasty at that point. Yeah. But any thoughts on as you're saying, to let them sit on the plant and all of that. Any thoughts on, like, say, first fruits versus later fruits? Is there
Oh, sure.
any sort of relevance to seed saving?
Yeah, particularly with squashes and melons, if you want to save the seed, if you're growing multiple squashes or multiple melons that are likely to cross-pollinate each other, harvest that very first fruit, because that very first fruit is unlikely to have been cross-pollinated if you've got two squashes that are growing slightly apart. So like if I want to save seeds for my squashes, I'll put one squash in the ground, and then I'll wait a couple of weeks and I'll put the other squash in the ground. The flowers are going to develop on that first squash and set fruit before the flowers develop on that second squash. And so you can save the seeds of that first squash and be assured that there was no cross-pollination, that the seeds are going to grow true. And a lot of people don't save seeds because they're worried about cross-pollination. Just figure out the timing to make sure that it's going to work its best. And then with my tomatoes in particular, I like to save the first seeds of the first fruit, because in a region like mine where it's short and I don't have a long growing season, I'm going to harvest the seeds of the plant that produced first, because chances are next year, those are the seeds that are going to produce first as well. And that way I can ensure that I've got a good harvest, because I'm saving the seeds that do best in my garden.
Yeah. Do you, when you're saving tomato seeds, what's kind of your method with that? You can do a few different things. One of the big ones is fermenting them. Yeah. Is there anything in particular you do when you're saving tomato seeds?
Yeah, I do fermenting. I experimented a little bit over a course of a couple of years, and the fermented tomato seeds germinated better. I've tried just drying the seeds, and the germination rates are generally pretty low. I've tried washing and then drying, and germination rates are pretty low. You're trying to basically completely remove that gel that is on a tomato seed that is a growth inhibitor. Yeah. And the fermentation is the best way to do that. So you just take the pulp with all the seeds in it, add a little bit of water, let it sit for a couple of days. It's going to get all moldy. And then you just wash it all off, let those seeds dry, and then store them. And they'll almost always, like this year, I probably got 100% germination on the seeds that I started, that were the ones I saved.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Yeah. It's just about ready to go when you see all that mold forming up on the top. That's the kind of the sign you're looking for. It's not anything bad if you're actually trying this sort of thing. But also though too is, and we mentioned and just talked about cucumbers, they got kind of that gel thing around them too. Is that similar to the tomato thing?
It is similar
method, or
and you can ferment. I haven't. I'll typically soak the seeds, and then I'll rub them like between or in a paper towel to try to wash off as much of that gel as I can. And then you see this with pumpkin seeds as well. For instance, if you put a cucumber seed or a pumpkin seed and let it dry, that outer gel is going to dry and it'll just peel right off. So it's not as necessary. A smaller seed like a tomato, you need to remove it. But when you are saving a bigger seed, after it dries, you can just run it between your fingers, and that dried gel will just come right off, and then you store it. And that's the best way to store it, is with that exterior membrane removed.
Excellent. Excellent. Nice. See your Eddie jumping in the comments there saying, happy Veterans Day early, Scott. Thank you for serving. I think that's from all of us. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you for that, Eddie, and for everyone else. I went to an amazing Veterans Day ceremony. My granddaughter in middle school, their school had a veterans ceremony, and they have for a number of years, but new principal, new dedication and devotion to the ceremony, and it was amazing. my granddaughter is in the choir, and so the choir sang, the jazz band played, the orchestra played,
Oh man.
the ROTC students were there to salute when we walked in, and they did the full flag ceremony at the beginning. It was just absolutely incredible. So yeah, I thank all of you who send those sentiments, and it's not something I normally think about, but this year going to that ceremony, it really was extra special.
Yeah, it is kind of nice when it kind of comes around in the year and you get reminded, right? And everybody shows their appreciation and everything as well too. But yeah, again, what a great career and a great time, we've talked about before, that of your service and all of that. Still fascinated that I mean, pilots always fascinate me. It's just, I mean, just the idea of being a person who's up in this cockpit, flying around in this metal bird up in the sky, doing everything. And it's one thing, the commercial pilots and all that, but those of you who are flying, military missions and doing these sort of things, just fascinating and absolutely amazing work.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I look back at it and think about how fun it was. It wasn't fun waking up at midnight to take off at 3 o'clock in the morning to
Right.
fly a mission over the ocean.
Yeah.
At the time, it wasn't fun, but when we look back on things like that, it was a lot of fun. It was a great experience. It was all good.
Yeah. You flew more
in
of those
retrospect.
planes though that would leave like regular, like I'm going to base. Have you ever flown off of an aircraft carrier?
No, my plane was too big. Well, I take it back. I have. So my plane was too big to actually operate on an aircraft carrier.
That's what I was thinking,
But
yeah.
there's a base in California that has a simulator complex, and
Yeah.
it's civilian contractors who run the simulators, and they have extra time on their hands. So they basically have programmed in every runway in the world into their database to include aircraft carriers. So I actually did fly a simulator once and landed and took off from an aircraft carrier. So that's the closest I've ever gotten.
Yeah. Now those pilots really, really fascinate me though too. Just
absolutely.
You're out in the middle of an ocean and you're landing on this little strip and then the way, and anybody who's seen the videos of them coming in and out and like how that hook grabs them and everything, man, that's got to be a thrill. I don't know if it's one I could handle myself personally, but it sounds just completely, like I said, fascinating. Right on. Excellent. And again, kind of going along the lines of seed saving real quick. I know a lot of people again are still harvesting, still getting through some of their crops and all that sort of stuff. I know I am as well too. Any preferred harvesting or preserving type of things, methods or anything like that?
It's basically very simple. You want a cool, dry, dark environment, and it doesn't matter much if your seeds are dry, and you don't need to actually measure the level of the seed. 7% is one that people say as a target. If you just allow your seeds to air dry, very few of us live in a region that is so humid that they won't dry out. Worst case, you could put it into a dehydrator at the very, very lowest setting. But the key is just make sure your seeds are dry. And then put them in plastic, put them in paper, put them in glass. It really doesn't matter. As long as the seed is dry, you can put them in any kind of container you want. The problem is, and a reason you might see people say, oh, no, don't store your seeds in plastic because they can develop mold. Well, if they develop mold, then they weren't dry. And the issue is that the seeds weren't ready to store when you attempted to store them. So make sure they're completely dry. And then, like we were talking earlier about some of the seeds that we put in the ground that can, like the onion seeds that can, handle some cold ground and actually start germinating. The seed is just waiting to wake up. And so if you put your seed in an area that is damp and is warm, it's going to sprout.
Mm,
And so you're going to go to get your seeds to put in the pots in spring, and they're going to be little plants that are growing. You see that with the potatoes in your pantry, right? That start growing roots. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. So cool, dry, and dark is what we're looking for. And that's basically to keep the seed asleep so that it doesn't start germinating.
Yeah, yeah. How about freezing?
I don't think freezing is necessary. And one of the issues with freezing, particularly today, with most of the freezers we have, most freezers have a defrost cycle that
Right.
is built into it so that
So
you don't
they're
have frost buildup.
dropping and raising temperatures. Yeah.
Exactly. And so inside the freezer, there's a fluctuation of temperature. And like we were talking earlier with the containers and the garlic and having that fluctuation of temperature, that's enough to kill the seed. It's gonna freeze, it's gonna wake up, it's gonna freeze, it's gonna wake up, and that's gonna cause some cellular damage, and the seed may not be viable anymore. So if you have a sustained low freezer temperature and you don't have to worry about those cycles, sure, you could put them in the freezer, but you don't need to. If just put them in the refrigerator if your basement is too hot, and that's fine, and you're not going to get that same cycling. Freezing can extend the life of seeds if it's done correctly, but most of us aren't saving seeds for 20 years and need to worry about putting them in a freezer.
Yeah, we've had some folks on. In fact, I think we've talked with you about this before, about visiting some of these big seed bank, seed vault places and that sort of stuff. And they use all sorts of methods from freezing to doing different things, but they're really working in a controlled environment and setup, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a video where I visited the seed bank up in Fort Collins,
Yeah.
the national U.S. seed bank. And depending on what they're saving, they'll save tissue, they'll save the seeds, of course, and they'll use liquid nitrogen for some, because the key is that cool down as it begins freezing has to be done exactly right, or it can cause damage. And the thaw needs to be done exactly right, or it will cause damage. And so the seed banks, they're using liquid nitrogen to freeze it instantly so they don't have any of that cellular damage. And then when it is germinated, they're very careful about how they raise the temperature to maintain a more consistent warming that also isn't going to cause damage.
Yeah, right on. And again, everybody, thank you so much, everyone out there right now. You had really awesome questions today. Let's see here. Let's get this one in real quick. Bowtie did ask, what would you tell gardeners who struggle with imperfect, messy gardens? Not talking about me at all. This is for a friend.
I just watched the Bowtie Life in the Garden, and as long as your plants look better than his, then you're doing fine. Right?
I love it. Perfect.
Yeah. Now, don't worry about the mess. There's so many. I talk about this occasionally. On my channel, I try to show the reality of the garden, which is why I make videos in the middle of winter. I make videos when all my plants are brown and dead, and it's easy to think you're doing something wrong. If you go back over my videos, I usually delete them, but I'll get questions saying, don't listen to this guy, everything in the background is dead. Well, yeah, it's because it's January in Colorado, and we're so used to seeing all these YouTube channels that are in San Diego and Texas and Florida, and everything is always green all the time. That's not reality. It just doesn't work that way. So don't try to live up to somebody else's garden, because they're someplace else and their conditions are going to be different than yours. So my garden right now is pretty brown. It's pretty messy, but I'm okay with that, because every morning I see the birds eating the seeds from those brown flowers that I left up so the birds would eat the seeds. And it's hard to
sometimes there's just a reason to kind of let things go and kind of be messy for a while. Again, even coming back to the idea of seed saving, right?
Yeah.
A lot of plants that we're seed saving have to grow their full life produce and get those seeds and everything, and that gets kind of ratty and messy looking, you know, when you're kind of going through that process. So if it's important to save seeds and all that, then that's just something that's going to be a part of how the aesthetic of your garden is going to be, right?
Exactly. And as long as you're
Yeah.
happy with what you've got, that's all that matters.
Yeah, excellent. And let's see here too. Again, Scott, really awesome here. I do want to kind of talk about your latest videos. Everybody knows Scott's got great videos and live streams and all that sort of stuff on his channel there. So you just put out a video, how to prepare trees for winter. And you were also talking a little bit in that video about our sponsor and mutual affiliate, Ivy Organic, and all of that. Shawnee did ask, though, can you paint trees with Ivy Organics at any temperature outside?
Yeah, you actually can. The key with the Ivy Organic is it's not a paint. So, you know, if you're going to do like a latex paint, and you shouldn't, latex paint on trees is not a good idea. But, you know, you have temperature limitations when you use an actual paint, whether it's water-based paint or oil-based paint. But the Ivy Organic is really not a paint. It is a bunch of ingredients, you know, diatomaceous earth, various herbs that they'll use, and it's more of a paste or a liquid paste that you put on the tree. And so it's not a paint, and you don't have to worry with the same limitations as far as the temperature. As soon as you put it on, like in that video, you know, that section of that video was like 30 seconds long that showed me painting that tree. From the time I started the bottom and then moved up to the top, the bottom had already dried. So, you know, it dries very, very quickly because it's just a powder and it just needs the water evaporated out from it. And it's that powder that pretty much stays on the tree over the course of the season.
Yeah, and again, too, any season as well, because it's working to help your trees and even plants in that sense, and during some parts, but to help deal with you know, like whether it's in the summertime and heavy sun and getting sunburn and that sort of thing, but also during the winter time there can be scalding or cracking as well that happens during the winter time that this can really help with as well too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've got a video I did a couple years ago showing that process because I've had trees that split, and explaining just exactly how that works. And most of the damage, at least in my region, happens in winter. And it's because the south side of the tree in spring in particular is exposed to full sun, and we get some very warm days in spring, but the back side of the tree is in shade, and we get very cold nights in spring. And so what happens is, for weeks, the back side of the tree is frozen and the front side of the tree is thawed. And that's what happens what happens to the tree is it splits. The bark that is thawed expands, and the bark on the backside can't move because it's frozen, and you get a nice big long crack right in the middle of the bark on the tree. And so that's why white in particular is what I like to use, because it reflects the sun and you don't get that heat buildup that causes that same damage.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely go and check out Gardener Scott's video on preparing your trees for winter. So you can learn a lot more about this subject, as well as check out Gardener Scott's live streams. He does the same sort of Q&As and all of that as well too that we're doing here today. Your last one, I think you talked about when are plants really dead? I guess a nice appropriate subject for this time of year. Any highlights of that discussion?
Yeah, basically the idea is just understanding whether you're growing an annual or a biennial or a perennial, and learning the life cycle of that plant, because some of those plants, like saving seeds, if you want to save seeds from carrot, you need to leave it in the ground over the course of the winter. And it's going to die back. It's going to look like it's dead, but it's not. It's going to grow again the next spring because it's a biennial. And then in that second season, it's going to set seed. So understanding the life cycle of a plant, the annuals, there's a lot of annual plants that we grow that they set seed in the first year. You can do everything you want to try to save that plant, but it's going to die. It's completed its life cycle in 1 year. So that was the key takeaway from that discussion, was understanding your plant and when it is supposed to die. And that'll help you determine when it's all brown and looks dead, whether it is or not.
Excellent, excellent. And any sneak peeks on what your next video is going to be about, or your next live
so
stream?
tomorrow in the live stream, I'm going to be talking about Black Friday for gardeners, and some tactics and strategies, because November is a great month to get savings of things that you want to get in the garden. And then a little later this week should be a video coming out about peonies and how to plant peonies.
Oh, excellent. Awesome. Wow, that's one of my favorite flowers there for sure. And real quick here, Jay was asking, do you have any special plans for your videos or live streams this winter?
I think she was asking you.
Is it me? I don't know. I think everybody puts at the Urban Gardener, but I think that's for you.
Okay, so if it's for me,
he asked me questions around here, Scott.
Well, she'll usually put Gardener Scott at the beginning of it if it's for me. So that's if it's intended for me, I'll be doing some book reviews that are coming up, but also with all my travels in the UK, you'll be seeing those travel videos that are going to be popping up as we move into winter.
Awesome, awesome. Excellent, excellent. And well, again, too, thank you so much for being here today. Again, everybody, really great questions today. Is really awesome conversation and discussion about all of these sort of things going on in our gardens right now. And like I mentioned, Gardener Scott's gonna, and as he mentioned too, going to be right back at this again. It's 8 a.m. right on the Gardener Scott channel.
8 a.m. Pacific time.
8 a.m. Pacific time. That would make it 11 a.m. Eastern time. And then, I don't know, I can't do the UK time. Right?
Yeah, it's 9 o'clock for me. That's all I'm at, or Mountain time.
But yeah, definitely. If you didn't get any of your questions answered here today, or you just think of something after this is over and you're like, darn it, I missed my opportunity to ask Gardener Scott a question. Well, you don't have to worry. He'll be right back at this again tomorrow morning for his live stream, and talk all about Black Friday and all of that sort of stuff. Really great. And as well too, I want to mention before we let Gardener Scott go too, and as we have him on here, he put out a book this year. We don't want to forget about it. Gardener Scott is an author now. And,
he's got a great gift for the holidays.
Exactly. This is what we need to be thinking about right now, is what are we going to give our friends, and especially our garden friends out there, as gifts for the holidays. Gardener Scott's book makes a perfect gift opportunity for you. And as well, his channel link and that book link is right down below in the description for all of you. If you need a way to get there and go find those things, but so definitely get those. And again, Scott, man, just really awesome. Again, I can't believe it's always amazing how much the time flies when we're here. And it's hard to believe that this conversation is already over, and I'm missing you already.
Okay. Well, I'll plan to be back next month.
That's right. That's right. We'll have you back again next month. Talk about some more of these seasonal discussions, and answer all of your gardening questions coming up here. So again, thanks again, Scott, for being here. And let me get this going here. Make sure that
Jay's on top of things.
Oh yeah, there she goes. There she's on it. Oh, there we go. I want to get that there.
Okay.
But anyways, thanks again, Scott. And we look forward to seeing you again here real soon.
Okay. Thanks, Ian. You can bye to all until tomorrow morning.
Yeah, we'll see you there.
Okay. Take care.
You got it. Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right. Again, thanks to Gardner Scott for being here with us today. And again, like I said, look forward to seeing him tomorrow morning on his channel, the Gardner Scott channel, where he'll have his live Q&A. And again, I know there were a few questions that we didn't get to here today. So definitely go and join with Scott on his channel for his live stream and get those questions answered there as well too. But lots of great questions today. Thank you all so much for your contributions and joining in with us today. I mean, again, you guys really brought it. You brought some really great questions for us, and a really fun discussion. I really look forward to hanging out with Scott every month. I wish we could do it almost every week, but we definitely get to, again, like I said, if you're going and checking out his channel and his live streams too. But yeah, again, really, really awesome. And next week, though, I just want to mention, too, what we got coming up here for the Let's Get Growing show. I don't necessarily have anything completely planned for next Saturday's show, so it'll be kind of a whatnot show or whatever. We'll just kind of hang out, do something. We'll figure something out, unless something comes up during the week or whatever for this next Saturday's show. But we will be back at it again, too, for next Sunday's show, because next Sunday is the third Sunday of the month, and the third Sunday of the month means that it's time for our monthly gardening book club. So yeah, it's time for the monthly gardening book club. We'll have our good friend Mr. MBC that you saw just a little bit earlier in the garden. He'll be here with us live to share with us in the garden, as well as our co-host for the monthly gardening book club. And this month we've got joining with us Kristen Graves, author of The Garlic Companion. So we were talking a bit about garlic here with Gardner Scott just a little bit here on the show. We'll dig into a little bit more, get in. This book is really great. It's, a lot of garlic history and some other little facts and things about garlic that we'll talk about as well too in our discussion with Kristen next Sunday. So yeah, definitely really looking forward to that. Like I said, garlic's one of my favorite things to grow. It's just one of those, it's just too easy, as we kind of talked about and discussed a little bit earlier too. So it's one of my favorite things. So it'd be great to have a whole show and book club dedicated to garlic, and a really great book. I just really enjoyed it. Can't wait to talk with Kristen and Mark about it. So that's going to be a really, really fun show. And again, yeah, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Let's see, make sure I'm not forgetting anything here before we're done. But like I said, just can't believe the show is already finishing up and we're at the end already. And before we do head out here, let's go ahead and click that like button if you haven't had a chance to yet here in the show. Click that thumbs up, as well as subscribe. Hit the bell notification too, so you can be notified of all of our videos and live streams coming up here. And share with all of your garden friends out there, and let them all know about our show here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. for all of you over there in the UK. And as I always say, follow those links down below in the description, especially to Gardner Scott's live Q&A. Go to his live Q&A tomorrow and tell him that you saw him here on the Let's Get Growing show, or get into one of his recent videos like that, preparing your trees for winter or whatever, and leave him a comment there and let him know that you saw him here on the Let's Get Growing show, as well as check out other links to all of our other social media, links to Ivy Organics 3-in-1. We did talk a little bit about the benefits of using that with your trees. Use our promo code GROW10. Let's put that up there real quick, GROW10, and that'll get you a discount on some of that 3-in-1 plant guard for your trees and fruit trees and all of that. Really a great asset for your garden shed to have. So definitely go get some of that, Ivy Organic. And also link down below too, as I mentioned, Mark, on our in the garden segment earlier, he was kind of talking about some of his experimentation that he's doing in his indoor grow room over the winter. He's got a whole thing that he's doing called Microgreens Microgreens University that he's doing. So you'll definitely want to go and check that out. Follow along with him. It's over on Instagram that he does that, but we got a link to that Instagram at Urban Ag Solutions, where you can follow along with Mark throughout the winter season as he's experimenting and doing all sorts of fun things in that little indoor green grow room and growing microgreens. So yeah, definitely really awesome. Again, awesome in the garden with Mark. Awesome conversation with Scott here today, and really awesome to hang out with all of you this weekend. Again, I just really enjoy this. It just makes my weekends to be able to get here and get in this seat here every weekend to hang out with all of you guys. You're such a wonderful community. You really make this show just really amazing, really awesome. And I thank you all for taking your time to hang out with us today. And again, bringing all of those really great questions for us. So thanks everybody for being here. And we'll see all of you again. Like I said, I don't know what we're going to do Saturday, but I'll definitely see you then.
Power out.